Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on Zoom tonight to learn more about the Traveling School. My name is Maddie, and tonight I'm joined by my colleague, Caitlin, and a recent alumna of the Traveling School, Carly. And we are really excited to share more details about who we are, what our semesters will look like next year, and how we can support you all through the application process. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time tonight to learn more about each of you, but if you don't mind, we would appreciate you putting your name, school, and hometown in the chat box marked by that little text bubble below. And that'll help us at least get to know you a little bit and follow up as needed after this presentation. As questions come up during our chat tonight, please feel free to throw them in the chat box addressed to me, Maddie, or to everyone, and we'll be sure to answer them during our Q&A session at the end. And if we can't get to them today, we'll be sure to follow up with you on email. So I'm going to liven this up a little bit and share my screen. And we've got a PowerPoint for you all. Okay, thumbs up if you can see my screen. Alrighty, so I'd love to start by giving you a quick introduction to the Traveling School. Folks in here probably have varying degrees of knowledge of us. So the idea of the Traveling School sprang from a group of high school girls and founder Genefree Hartman in 2000. They imagined a dream school, which was one high school semester to travel the world, fully engaging in a region to learn firsthand about its history, people, challenges, and of course its heroes. They believed that this school should mix experiential academics with outdoor and cultural activities, and it would be more than just a school. At this dream school, students would become a community of learners and friends and role models for one another. The Traveling School launched its first semester in the spring of 2003, and since that time, so many talented and committed students and teachers have helped us realize this dream. Today, the Traveling School demonstrates a really strong track record of providing exceptional semesters that serve as a catalyst for young leaders to return home from their dream semester with the confidence, insight, and dedication to become agents of change. So across our 17 years in operation, we have brought students to South America, Central America, Southern Africa, New Zealand, and now for the first year ever, our own backyard here in the US. While abroad travel is typically the realm that we love to explore with students, we have found a pretty incredible silver lining in this pandemic year to explore the Western US, which is where we call home. Our office is in Bozeman, Montana. So we don't have any programs running at the moment and instead are busy building new partnerships, new curriculum, and new destinations using the strong foundation of our experiences doing just that across so many continents over the past 35 semesters. So we will do some quick intros. Like I said, my name is Maddie Johnson, and I'm the recruiting coordinator and also a former teacher with TTS. I taught literature and global studies back in 2019, and I'm really thrilled to connect with you all this evening and across your application process. And I'll kick it over to Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Bear. I am the program and admissions coordinator. So you would hear a lot from me through the application process. I'm one of the first points of contact after you submit an application, and then I certainly support you through the whole process into interviews and beyond. And then I definitely provide some support to the program when a semester is in the field, touching base with parents and answering questions and helping with some of the behind the scenes logistics.
And I'm Carly. I am 20 and I was on TTS in my sophomore spring. I'm from Colorado and I'm currently a freshman at Western Washington University.
Great. So we aim to keep tonight to around an hour. And if you can't stay for all of it, we are recording this session and I'll be sure to email you all the link if you miss anything. We'll be covering some semester nuts and bolts at the beginning, making space for Carly to share stories and reflections from her semester, covering risk management and of course our lovely COVID responses, and then closing out with application details before turning it over to you all for a Q&A. So as I said at the beginning, if you've got questions come up throughout our presentation, please either privately message them to me, Maddie, or to everyone in that chat box, and we'll get to them. So we're going to start by zooming out a little bit. Our bread and butter at TTS is bringing curriculum to life by integrating and listening to the stories of the places through which we travel and the people who live there. We are different from some of the other semester schools you might know of in that we are the smallest semester school with just 16 students and 4 teachers. We're the only school with no traditional campus, and we are the only all-girls semester school. Instead of having a traditional campus, we bring our 16 students who are 9th through 12th grade girls on a pretty incredible road trip through the Rocky Mountain West while tackling 6 rigorous place-based courses, living out of a backpack, being unplugged from technology, and using the places and people of our destinations as both our classrooms and our teachers. Like I said, we are unique in not having a home base or campus. Instead, our students weave their way from Montana to Arizona across their 15 weeks with us for this awesome journey where they might set up camp for a whole week at an organic farm in Montana, learning about medicinal plants and sustainable agriculture directly from the farmers. Or they might trek through the Tetons in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where they'll sleep under the stars and learn about glaciology and native peoples and different stakeholders in our reliance on oil and gas in class along the way. So the nature of our academics really drives the intimacy of our student and teacher communities on semester. Your history teacher might be teaching you a lesson about race and privilege as it relates to the events of 2020, just hours after she was belaying you up a rock wall in Moab, Utah, or hours before she helps you with a backcountry meal as you're on the same cook crew team. So I'm going to go turn it over to Carly, who will speak a little bit more specifically about our 4 pillars at TTS and how they come alive in some form every single day.
Yeah, so our 4 pillars of TTS are intentional community, cultural immersion, rigorous place-based academics, and outdoor adventure. So the creation of our intentional community definitely shaped my time at the traveling school. Before my semester, I hadn't spent much time abroad at all, and never with a group of all women. It really changed the way I see travel and outdoor recreation today. And living with such a tight-knit community was amazing because it helped me feel like I brought value to the community and like to the group, which is something I wasn't really feeling at my high school back home. And then while we were immersed in South American culture the whole semester, the most impactful cultural experience for me was the homestay in Agualongo. It was really, which was in Ecuador, sorry. It was a really special experience for me to be able to live through the day-to-day life with my host family, and really helped my academics come to life as well because I was learning about the histories of the people who were opening their home to me, which was really special. Academically, the traveling school helped me to fall in love with learning again. And I was able to tap back into my curiosity and passion for learning through having classes that were really applicable to just where we were living and traveling through. And today in college, I feel that same sort of excitement about learning that the traveling school had reestablished, which is really exciting and I don't think would have happened if I hadn't gone. And one of my favorite memories from school was when we toured farms in Esmeraldas, Ecuador, and had a science class led by farmers like on a food forest. And it was crazy to be standing there like outside on a farm talking about ecological systems instead of like sitting in front of a whiteboard. And one of my favorite parts of the whole semester by far were the backpacking trips. I grew up spending a lot of time in the outdoors, and it was so cool to be able to explore the countries we were in to the next level by like hiking through them. And I would say like the homestay was the most mentally formative section, but we did a glacier hike at the end, which was definitely the most physically challenging and rewarding. And these two memories are the ones I come back to as my most, come back to the most as my best examples of kind of like growing through discomfort in that like discomfort zone where you grow the most. And completing something that initially seemed nearly impossible while I was with my best friends and closest mentors was super impactful and gave me a lot more confidence, especially in the outdoors. And also, I've spent a lot of time climbing and skiing and backpacking and rafting through the states that this domestic semester is going to go through. And I am just like super envious, first of all, and cannot imagine how traveling through like the Tetons or the Slick Rock deserts in Utah with this like critical and academic eye that TTS brings is just going to like increase the wonder of those spaces so much more than they already are. And then I'm going to talk to the schedule a bit as well. So while days are at the traveling school never look the same, we do have a couple kind of basic types of days. So sometimes we hunker down in the hostel or at the campsite for the day and stack all of our classes on top of each other, which feels similar to a day at home, except we were in a field in rural Bolivia and you guys might be sitting at the base of the Tetons in Wyoming. And other days we might be on a backpacking trip, wake up in tents and start the walk to the next campsite. And not do a ton of academics. We also have travel days that I personally thought were really underrated. I loved the bus rides that mean that we're spending like hours in a van or cars heading to the next destination. But more often than not, all of these different kind of days combine into one. So there'll be some classes and activities and travel all in one. So like it might look up kind of more like this schedule on the screen, where you would wake up early for gym, have the cook crew prepare some breakfast, hop into a class or two, and then transition to an activity like a farm visit, a museum tour, guest lecture, market exploration, all of the above, any combination of activities. And one thing to note, as you might have guessed, is that our days are full and we never have real weekends in the traditional sense, but and then you also get some free time and longer work periods or town time, but you're always under the supervision of the teachers and the boundaries they've established to keep us safe. And then I'm passing it off to Caitlin next.
All right, so who attends the traveling school? TTS girls find us because they're seeking a more challenging, engaging, and community-driven school environment. They are independent, motivated, intellectually curious, passionate, adventurous, inclusive, open-minded, respectful, hardworking, and kind. Really, in a nutshell, they're awesome. We look for applicants who are committed to rigorous academics, adventurous life on the move, and an intentional community with limited connection back home. We don't have phones or laptops on semester, and there is limited Wi-Fi. We value individuals who can advocate for themselves and their community and are grateful for the experience they have been given. We seek those who are able to rise to the challenge of a semester on the move. They can hike 10 miles with a heavy pack, adapt to rustic living conditions, and treat their peers, teachers, and local guides with respect, even after a hard day. And we know that this doesn't speak to everyone. That's okay. Part of the admissions process is definitely making sure that we are a good fit for one another. We've created a list of essential eligibility criteria to guide students and families through the fundamental requirements of participation in a TTS semester. This document's located at the top of our Apply Now page on our website, and we ask all families to review the document prior to submitting an application. And don't worry if right now the idea of carrying a heavy backpack up a mountain at altitude makes you nervous. There's plenty of time between now and the semester start date to prepare, and we are here to support you fully along the way. So let's see a little bit of where will we go? Well, as Maddie mentioned before, for the first time ever, we will be exploring the Rocky Mountain West. Due to ongoing uncertainties surrounding COVID-19 and international travel, we've shifted to domestic programming for the next year. Fortunately, our academic philosophy has no geographical boundaries, and we can explore relevant themes in any location using the traveling school place-based curriculum. We are very excited about this opportunity, and we hope you are too. It's been on our mind to do domestic programming for some time. So here are some big picture details for next year. Arizona, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana. We're sticking to our traveling school essence, living out of a backpack, moving homes often, and interacting with our surroundings. This may mean rafting Colorado whitewater, hiking through deep desert canyons or over high Rocky Mountain passes, learning to climb on tall granite walls, or closing your eyes while shooting stars beam through the night sky. The fall semester will travel from north to south, and then the spring will flip and travel from south to north. Everyone will practice planning a menu, cooking in the backcountry, rolling up tents and packing gear. Consider discussing immigration law right at the Mexican border for global studies class, or observing elk in Colorado for science, and reading about stories of race, power, and privilege amidst dispossessed indigenous homelands in Utah for literature. You'll be away from the screen with real humans pioneering a new TTS path. We purposely don't share our day-to-day itinerary details because we respect the need to change and maneuver through the semester. This is an important piece of our risk management planning, but that doesn't mean that parents won't or can't know where their daughters are throughout the semester. We do share a week-to-week itinerary during the enrollment process with all families, and we're always just a phone call away to connect. And yeah, getting into the nitty gritty. So risk management is definitely a big part of our job, and it's important. It's an imperative to our planning. We acknowledge risk is all around us every day, no matter where we are in the world. And our job as a school is to make informed decisions to maintain our risk management goals. We don't guarantee safety. We focus on good decision-making and conservative choices to preserve the health of the group for a prolonged period of time. Everyone, students, teachers, parents, and administrators are responsible for helping us uphold our safety practices and protocols. So from clear communication and transparency during the admissions process and enrollment process to the daily actions and protocols on semester, all of us participate in the risk management process. So right now, COVID is obviously on everyone's mind as the flashing red light of risk. COVID is an objective risk. We are already aware of it, but it's obviously not the only risk. However, it's a big part of why we chose to press pause in our programs this year and why we are focusing our energy on domestic travel for next year. As we plan for our fall and spring semesters, we are thinking about everything from how to bring students together to form a pod, to how to safely travel and interact with other people and communities. We're thinking about sleeping, eating, communal living, and quarantine issues. These are big questions. And as we have seen in the outdoor industry, practices continue to change as everyone learns more about the virus. We are in open communication with our semester school partners and other outdoor programs, learning from their experiences this past year, and currently developing new practices to implement for our own upcoming semesters. Right now, we know minimizing exposure will be a group effort, and we will likely ask students and teachers to commit to and be diligent about COVID precautions in the weeks leading up to and during the semester. Overall, risk management is a big topic, and we'll spend much more time on it during the parent Q&A webinar, which is a big part of our admissions process for all applying families. Until then, though, please feel free to reach out to our home office or email Maddie or myself with specific questions about risk management, COVID, etc.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. She didn't get the fun part. Yeah, so we have been talking a lot and talking a lot about the what's and the who's and the where's. And by now, hopefully the why has come through as well. But my last plug here is that after a year like this one, why not pursue an experience like the traveling school? You've already taken this first really big step in joining us here tonight. And the next step we ask of you is to start imagining yourself developing lifelong friends and mentors, redefining home in your classrooms, and unveiling the most authentic versions of yourself. With TTS, your home becomes rural campgrounds and small town hostels and backcountry cabins, organic farms, mountain ranges, and riverbanks after a long day on the whitewater. So embracing this on the move, academically immersive lifestyle for over 100 days while being supported by an awesome community, and really challenged in and out of the classroom will affect the way you return home. And as a former faculty, again, that's what I see in our students. I am so lucky to still be in touch with so many of the girls that I taught across both fall and spring semesters on our 2019 semesters. And you just see them so wide-eyed and bushy-tailed to tackle the world, and they're doing it. And it's really, really amazing to be someone who was at one point seeing that start to, that light, I guess, start to be ignited for them. So I'm going to pass it over to Carly to share some final reflections about her semester and how she has grown since her time on the traveling school, and in part because of the traveling school.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. So I feel like the traveling school didn't change who I was, but helps me become closer to who I want to be and transformed the way I move through the world. TTS changed the way I thought about people who live lives differently from mine. It challenged my beliefs, supported me through the ups and downs of the semester, and showed me so many possibilities that the world holds. The traveling school left me feeling more like myself than ever, more confident, more empowered, and more curious. I care about what my communities, or sorry, I care more about what my communities look like, and I'm passionate about changing them for the better. My advice to you as prospective students is to not be afraid to take this leap, and don't put limits on what you think your next school year could look like. Today, especially, we need people who want to step out of their comfort zones and grow to challenge norms that seem so permanent right now. We need people who are more compassionate and thoughtful and strong to lead the ship towards a better future.
Thanks, Carly. It was so beautiful. Yeah, I'll second that by just saying I think these kinds of decisions can feel daunting, especially financially. It's a big ask of your family and definitely a big commitment to think about right now. And you are nestled at home and excited about all of the luxuries that might come with your creature comforts, and then imagining a world where you are doing high school on the move and living out of a backpack and given your community as opposed to being able to choose it, I think totally can feel daunting. And if I was a high schooler, there's no doubt that I would want to experience something like this. Remembering that ultimately it's 15 weeks, it's one semester, you will go back to those creature comforts, you'll go back to your friends and your family. And I think being uncomfortable and in unfamiliar places for 100 days, for 15 weeks, really is where the change starts happening. So we have got some application details up here for you to review. Our application deadline is going to be pushed a little bit. You might have seen February 8th some places, but we're fairly flexible on that. We would love you to start getting your application pieces in as soon as possible. And if you've got any questions on what that looks like, credit transfer forms and application fee waivers and need-based scholarship applications, please connect with Caitlin or myself. info@travelingschool.com is the easiest email to use for those bigger picture questions. And I know we've been talking at you a lot, so I already have gotten a couple questions coming in. So we're going to transition to the Q&A part of this session, and then we'll wrap it up from there. So remembering that we've got former faculty and me, our lead admissions coordinator, Caitlin, and an alumna with us here today. If you've got any questions, toss them our way and we'll do our best to answer them. And thanks again for throwing some of your personal information into the chat. That's fun to see who we have with us tonight. So one question that I just got is, can you speak a little bit more about the teachers at the traveling school? I'll start with that question as a former teacher, and then Carly, maybe I'll throw it over to you to tell a story about your teachers. But I will say, so I taught for 2 different semesters. I was the literature and global studies teacher. I came from an experiential education background, but my 3 coworkers were able to complement me and my experiences really well. I had a public school teacher who was in Portland, Oregon, teaching high schoolers for 10 years before she came to teach with the traveling school. I also had a wildlands firefighter who was a little bit more versed in the backcountry wilderness world and really capable with wilderness medicine. I also had a teacher who lived in Ecuador for almost 10 years, and she was totally fluent in Spanish, and she taught in public schools down in Ecuador. On my other semester, to add to that, I had a co-teacher who was coming out of a more experiential ed background, another one who had been teaching elementary school, and then another one who was working with high schoolers, but in a more mentorship capacity than formal education. So our teachers are coming from a lot of different academic backgrounds. All of them are passionate, all of them are motivated, and all of them are able to hold a lot of pieces that we need to in order to tackle these semesters. As your teacher, we are not just the person who's crafting your lessons for the day, but rather we are also thinking big picture about our logistics. You know, if the person who we just ran into at the market is an incredible advocate for human wildlife conflict issues, we'll reel them in for a guest lecture, maybe over dinner that night. If we heard about an amazing neighboring town to the one that we're in right now, we'll switch gears and figure out if we can get on a bus the next day to bring our students to that place that we've heard great things about. We're also the cookers of the meals, the mentors to these students, the nurses when someone needs a Band-Aid or a clinic visit. So we certainly hold a lot of these pieces, and I'm excited to say that our teachers are, if not fully qualified on their own, as a team of 4, they are going to complement each other really well. Carly, any anecdotes to share on that note?
Yeah, I feel like ultimately I kind of like what I often say about my traveling school instructors and teachers were, it was kind of the first time I had a role model who is a woman who I feel like encompassed everything I want to be. And that was like all 4 of them were super compassionate and caring and thoughtful while also being like really strong and tough and like capable, which was such like a cool duality to see in someone who was leading a group of 16 girls through South America, and as someone who is acting as like my active role model and mentor. And I think one of my favorite, this is like a pretty goofy anecdote, but it's the one that popped in my head first, so I'm going to tell it. But we were in the southern Ecuador, and we were planning on moving into northern Peru pretty soon, but there was a flood warning thing, and so we ended up having to shift our whole itinerary and swapped, and so went to Bolivia instead. But we definitely stayed in this little town called Cuenca for a while, longer than we had planned on. And like Maddie was talking about, like just the like grace my teachers held with a full itinerary switch while also being super fun was awesome. And one of my friends, Molly, wanted to do a Harry Potter theme tonight. And so the teachers were stoked and launched into like a full on theme night, like helping us make some really gross butterbeer that was not consumable at all, but it was the thought that counted. And we had a sorting hat ceremony, and then we like all were wearing capes of sheets or something, and like we're running through the streets to go get gelato, and like teachers in the lead like dancing through the streets with us. And it was just the most like ridiculous thing, while I knew that these women were like trying to shift their whole itinerary and bring like 20 people to a new country that we weren't planning on initially. And like it was just really funny and amazing. And I continue to stay in touch with definitely like 2 of my instructors in particular, and one of them wrote a lot of college application recommendations and job application recommendations as well, which has been really helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Carly.
Mm-hmm.
Warms my heart. I see a quick one that I can answer. Wondering about if the traveling school can help you with equipment, renting or borrowing things like packs, or if we should buy our own. We have a really cool program called the Gear Fleet. We partner with different brands and organizations across the country that will help us get used gear or discounted gear. And if you need some of those bigger, pricier items like a backpacking backpack or a rain jacket that's actually going to do the job when it's sleeting rain in the middle of the Colorado mountains, let us know. We are definitely happy to get you some of that used gear at no cost, or find you some discounts on some definitely high quality brands. Caitlin, do you have anything to add to that question?
No, we do have some pieces that we can even rent out directly from our own personal fleet and send to you before the semester and collect at the end of the semester. But we're definitely wide open for having that conversation with what you need and how we can support you getting it.
Awesome. Caitlin, do you want to speak to cost and affording the traveling school?
Yes, great question. So a semester with the traveling school costs $31,000. We know that that's a very, very daunting number. It is to us as well. We work very hard behind the scenes to make a semester possible for any motivated young woman who wants it. So please reach out to us. We do offer need-based scholarships. Those applications are due along with the student application. We have a page of our website called Affording a Semester, where we outline the cost. We go into the details about how to apply for one of those need-based scholarships. That is a piece where parents need to be involved. We collect sort of like a big picture of your family's unique and individual financial needs or sort of status. And then the traveling school meets, we have a financial committee that meets and delegates out these awards based on your individual needs. And then from there, we have some other tools that we encourage all applicants, regardless of your financial standing, to use. We have what's called a personal savings plan, and we do our best to help every student save, earn, and raise money for their semester, and we're happy to help you through all those pieces. We also have tuition payment plans, so you don't have to pay the tuition up front. You can pay for it over the course of the whole semester by the end date. We have many ways to support you, so please, if that's something that's concerning or you'd like to hear more about, you can reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you or walk you through that application process for those need-based scholarships.
Awesome, thanks. Another potentially quick one is, do you imagine homestays will be part of the upcoming year? If the world normalizes a little bit and really gives us the green light that that kind of opportunity feels safe, yes, we would love to integrate homestays into our itinerary. As Carly was saying, that was one of the highlights of her experiences in Ecuador. And if homestays can't happen, if we don't feel totally safe doing them, there are creative ways that we can integrate those kinds of relationships as well. As you might have seen, we have 20 hours of community service for each student by the end of our semesters, and that can look a lot of different ways. It might be doing a citizen science project, collecting data while you're on a backcountry trek in Colorado, observing elk or observing birds. It might be still getting a lot of guest lectures, whether they're zoomed in or coming to you live. That's up to debate based on the pandemic realities. And another big thing is, we were mentioning this idea of staying on an organic farm, pitching your tents in the backyard. There are still safe ways to create relationships, even in this pandemic year, as hopefully you've found a little bit to be true in your life right now. But we're going to be the most conservative with those calls. And I think that it's hopeful that we'll still be able to reel in the voices of the places that we're traveling through, so that it's not just your 4 teachers who are trying to speak for everyone, because that's, again, our bread and butter is we are not the experts in all of these subjects. We want to start the conversations and then try to find as many stakeholders and perspectives from the places that we're in to speak to those things. Caitlin, do you mind speaking a little bit to credit transfers? And there was another question similar to that, but working with your school to take a semester, bringing those credits back, and working with your current school to get approval for the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So a piece of the application process, you don't see it until you've submitted an application. It's something we send in your response email, is we have something called a credit transfer form. And on this form, we outline the courses that we offer, and we ask you to sit down with your school counselor and discuss how your credit requirements for your school for that particular year can be reflected in the courses we offer. And, just starting that conversation about how would a, global studies credit with a traveling school, where could that fit in to my required coursework? We also have a pretty detailed course document that we send along with that form that gives sort of as detailed as it can be, description of what each of our courses covered. And for the most part, we're pretty successful of working with schools to make sure that you receive credit for the classes you take with us. And that form is a great way to start that conversation. If you come across any sort of hurdles or boundaries, please reach out to us, and myself or Anj, our program director, is happy to open a conversation with your school. We've worked with a lot of different schools, private, public, homeschool. Yeah, we've seen quite a bit of it, and we've definitely found lots of creative ways to make sure that our credits transfer. We're here to help you with that process as well.
Carly, I'm curious if you have a perspective on this, otherwise I can start it, but it sounds like some folks out there might be having trouble convincing their parents that this is worth doing. Do you have any wisdom or even techniques that you employed to help convince your parents that this was a semester that they should support you in doing?
I feel like I can't speak to this one too much. My parents I was lucky enough that they were super excited for me. And it did not take much convincing. I would definitely encourage them to come to things like this, though. I think putting a face to the experience and the whole thing can be really helpful. And when they see that it's real people doing it. Actually, I just thought I'm currently doing a program that's like an alternative college community. And I did have to convince my parents a little bit because it was the first time there's no history of it. I was in the first cohort. And so my dad specifically was pretty apprehensive and kind of thought it was going to be a fire festival kind of situation. It was not. It was great. And I'm going back. But I would say definitely just involve them with your research and show them what you know, and show them how much this would mean to you, and how much you can get out of it, I would say.
I would add too, if those concerns, or if the parent concerns, as a parent myself, are stemming from things like risk management and safety, specific. I mean, my mind goes right to COVID, and maybe not everyone's does, but that's very much so in our forefront. Know that that's a big part of our job, and that is what the majority of our behind the scenes is all about right now. And Anj, who couldn't be here tonight, our program director, that's what she excels at. And we have connections, and we're having those conversations. And it's a new location for us, but this experience isn't new. That we're really taking exactly what we've done overseas for years and translating it to our hometowns and our home states. And in a way that's easy. It's challenging because it's new, but we feel really good about it, and we hope that comes across. And we're happy to answer any questions directly on the phone. We would love to talk to you on the phone, and just speak to what we have done and what we are doing moving forward.
Totally. And I think I'll just add one quick story. I was back home in Vermont a few weeks ago, and one of the students on my semester in Africa was 45 minutes away from where I was, and we were able to connect over a hike, which was really fun. And hearing her, a year out of her experience, speak about her experience reminded me how important these kinds of experiences are, because not only does she have this incredibly mature sense of her global citizenship now, because she was interacting with a new culture for 15 weeks. But she also has a far more defined idea of her passions and what she wants to do going forward. She was a type 1 diabetic who raised all of the money somehow on her own to make this semester work. Her parents were not excited about her going. Her doctors weren't excited about her going. She got the diabetic solar refrigerator, insulin cooling business to sponsor her. And she brought around her little solar powered refrigerator so that her insulin was constantly in a safe temperature zone. And she really had to convince a lot of people that it was safe for her to go and important for her development as a student. And she was not getting enough out of her school. She was one of the most brilliant students I've ever taught, and she was not inspired going to her classrooms every day in rural Vermont. She is now so excited about hopping into the world of women's health and public health, and starting her own nonprofit for young kids with diabetes. I mean, this girl's world was flipped upside down in a lot of ways. And I will toot my own horn for a moment and say that I think in her 4 teachers, she was able to get some adult women mentors who were going to carry through with her through the rest of her life in a really valuable way. So it is so worth it. And yeah, we'll work with you to make the financial burden less cumbersome. Maybe we'll hit 2 more questions. So if you haven't yet asked a question and you've got one burning on your mind, make sure that you get it in the chat. And it looks like we have some nice advice. Also, talking to other parents who have sent their kids to a semester away school can be helpful. We can connect you with those parents as well. So thank you, Katie, for that comment. A quick question: what is the recommended semester to do within high school? I would say spring versus fall, they're going to look fairly similar, especially this year because we are hitting the same general route. But if you are an athlete, that could inform your decision. If you are a senior, that could inform your decision. I know few seniors want to miss their senior year spring. And if you are, I don't know, looking for a little bit more time to raise some money or to convince your parents or to get these credits transferred and all of those pieces, the spring might be an easier option just because it is a little bit further away. Caitlin, do you have any extra context on that one?
No, you covered a lot of what I was thinking about. It might also be worth just starting with that conversation with your school counselor, bringing that credit transfer form. There are some very particular credits out there that we just don't cover on semester. And if that's something you can take care of in your fall and then join us on the spring or vice versa, that might be a deciding factor as well. If you can work it out with your school to be present for what you need to be present for and then fill in with us.
Awesome. Another one that just came through hot off the press is, how do you accommodate different grade levels? Great question. We do work with 9th through 12th grade. So that's quite a span in terms of age range, as young as 14 and as old as 18. And the occasional gap student is even excited about us too. So in the classroom, the teachers are well aware of where the students are coming from, and our job, which I would like to think is the job of every teacher, is that differentiated learning approach. Where are they coming from? What support do they need? And how can they grow across your semester in an individualized learning environment? With a 4-to-1 student to teacher ratio, that is a lot easier for us to do than the average public school teacher juggling 150 different students. So yes, the 9th grader might be slightly graded differently, but they are growing in the same way, and they are being graded on their growth ultimately. And we don't see the grade levels even as the strongest indicators of their academic experiences or quality. It's really, what support have they gotten in the past, and privilege plays a big role in it. Have they had tutors in the past? Have they had more individualized learning environment? So our goal is to really meet the students where they're at and gauge their growth and support them along the way. And we understand that the 12th grader might need to be pushed a little bit harder, but ultimately the questions that we're processing in class are big questions. They are questions that I didn't get challenged with until college. The books that we are reading are not your average book that you're reading in high school. So if you are expecting an academically easy semester, switch up those academic expectations, because rigor is part of our nature, but rigor looks different from maybe what you're experiencing in high school right now. It's not memorizing the chemistry equations. It is, can you read this article, think critically about it, and investigate the roots of your upbringing that might contribute to the way that you're processing its information. So that was a long-winded answer, but we accommodate different ages and different grade levels. And it's really incredible to see how the friendships also are not tied to how old folks are. It's much more tied to, yeah, just deeper connections than that. And there are some beautiful mentorship relationships as well that come out of the 12th grader working with the ninth grader on some of her work, or, you know, even in the outdoor pursuits world. Let's end with maybe one last one. What are some ways you recommend raising money now that options are limited due to COVID? Caitlin, do you want to hit this one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We provide a bit of a toolkit where we outline some examples of what students have done in the past, knowing well aware that this is a very different time with COVID. But just to touch on a few examples of what students have done in the past, and then I am more than happy to connect with you and brainstorm further. Again, we try and break it down in that save, earn, and raise category. So like first and foremost, what's some way that you personally could save some money that maybe you're already spending? Say it's like your weekly, coffee habit. Could you cut that down in some way and put some of that money aside and plan to do that for 12 plus weeks? And what could you save there? In terms of raising money or earning money, many of you might be at the age where you already have a job. Maybe you're babysitting. Maybe in the time of COVID, you're not babysitting, but you could walk your neighbor's dog. Could you plan for some of those weekly activities and plan out again for the next 3, 5, 6 months, and have a goal in mind of what you're going to earn and try and aim for that goal to help supplement whatever, your financial needs for this semester. The raising part is certainly the most challenging part. It is really hard, even as an adult, to ask other people for money. Ways in which we have had students do that successfully in the past is creating, sort of like a brochure of, here are my goals with the traveling school. Here's why I'm motivated to do it. And here's why you should support me. And handing out that pamphlet to, your community, whether it's a church community or your sporting community or your extended family, and really just, directly and honestly saying that you need support and why it's beneficial for them to support you. And we provide a lot of language and hand holding to help you through that. Cause again, that is a hard skill. That's a skill, again, I struggle with. But those are some ways. We've had students create products to sell, whether it's jewelry or pottery or even cookies. We have a student here in town who is going through the application process, and she sold holiday pies, and I bought one, and it was so creative and delicious and an easy way for her to take a skill she already had and sort of to extend it out there, put herself out there. I was really, impressed with her maturity in terms of reaching out and saying, I'm trying to raise money for this event. Will you support me? Yes, I will. I think you'd be surprised of how many people would stand behind you that way. So, yes, Carly, do you have an example?
Yeah, I was also just going to add, this isn't as much for like the tuition, but we kind of spoke to it a bit earlier, but the gear can kind of be expensive as well. And I reached out to quite a few companies just for like sponsorship kind of things. And I got a pair of sunglasses and a pair of like significantly discounted like river sandals that I still use. They're great. But I would definitely just don't think that, like, the worst they can say is no. So just like shoot any companies you think are cool, or if you like, man, I really need a new pair of sunglasses, or even like something as big as hiking boots, like it's worth it. Like I have like, I don't know. I think I'm going to put my email in the box later on, and I'd be happy to like show you my, like, I think I still have my sample of what I sent to companies. And I, like Caitlin said, you'd be surprised at how many people are stoked that young people are taking their education into their own hands.
My last thought on that is, you do not have to do it alone. Please reach out. I mean, we are here to support you and help you through that. We want to make a semester a reality. We really don't want that price tag to hold anyone back. And you can, with work and determination. We've had lots of students make it possible. So please reach out. will help.
Awesome. I just threw in the chat 2 other external places that are more successful than I've ever realized. And that one is supposed to be an exclamation point. Awesome. Well, I'm conscious of the time and also conscious of how going forward, when questions come up, we are here to help you. We've got, again, I'm going to just share my screen real quickly and show you some of that contact information that we are excited to connect with you through. So info@travelingschool.com is a great way to pose some of those questions that were not answered this evening. If you click through our website, there's also an FAQ page through the admissions platform on the left-hand side there, and some of those might help you answer your questions. Of course, we know that a lot of the content on our website is maybe a little bit more catered towards an abroad experience, but I don't think too many of those answers will be different. And again, we're just a phone call away. So we're happy to keep this conversation going. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to all of those questions, but thanks for those who contributed them. Keep them coming. And I'm so glad to see so many folks excited about a semester with us next year. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy New Year. And we're excited to keep in touch through this admissions process. Any last comments from Carly or Caitlin?
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited for you guys. This is definitely stressful, but most exciting too.
Awesome. On that note, we'll say adios and have a great rest of your evening.